chaplain, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Representative Epley.
Good morning, my friends. Let us pray together. Father, I thank you for the celebrations of this past Holy Week. All humanity has once again been reminded that love and grace always prevails, even in the midst of man's attempt at times to subvert it. Indeed, as Apostle Paul says, love never fails. There's much facing this body within the next few days. I pray for your grace and wisdom to abound. Your word declares, a person will be satisfied with good by the fruit of their words, and the deeds of a person's hands will return to them. The way of a fool is right in their own eyes, but a wise person is the one who listens to counsel. I pray the words spoken in this chamber today will be of such that all who participate will be pleased when reminded of the words chosen for debate. O Lord, allow those words and subsequent actions to produce a harvest of good fruit for the people of Kansas. I pray the minutiae of the moment will be eclipsed by the good and wise counsel of the informed. As the days get longer and patience shorter, I pray for your spirit to hover over each individual. Might any harsh words contemplated be traded for ones of grace and dignity? Your word reminds us a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. The tongue of the wise makes knowledge acceptable. Help us, Lord, to use gentle words of wisdom rather than harsh words of folly. I pray for those who are experiencing physical difficulties in our midst. We often believe we know the right answers toward healing, but we also know you know the things we do not. Would you reveal a path towards healing as only you can? I pray and ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the States of America, to the republic which it stands, one nation, indivisible. Have all members had an opportunity to record their presence? The clerk will close the roll and record the attendance. Colleagues, this week is a week of patience. As we all know, we'll be in and out of the chamber many, many times during a day, almost like the Army or the military, hurry up and wait. So patience is in order. Please give everyone an extra measure of grace this week. We don't know what everybody is experiencing, so be kind and give that extra measure of grace. Speaker recognizes Representative Schreiber on a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For 54 years, Special Olympics of Kansas has offered year-round sports training and athletic competition in 20 Olympic-style sports for children and adults with intellectual disabilities. Typical traditional sports include skiing, basketball, cheerleading, volleyball, golf, tennis, track and field, to name just a few. Kansas boasts 105 local teams, with 5,400 athletes representing most, if not all, of Kansas's 105 counties. Special Olympics give them continuing opportunities to develop physical fitness, demonstrate courage, experience joy, and participate in a sharing of gifts, skills, and friendship with citizens of Kansas. Recently, Special Olympics of Kansas has started a partnership with the Kansas State High School Activities Association to introduce the Unified Champion School strategy to local high schools through unified bowling. Hundreds of school-aged children with and without an intellectual disability are partnered together, practicing and competing as unified pairs. In 2023, the state championship school was Liberal High School. As those who participate graduate, they find unified sports waiting for them in most Kansas universities and colleges and through local Special Olympics programs. We are honored to have Kansas Unified volleyball team from the Manhattan Sports Club here with us. Special Olympics of Kansas. To hear more about Special Olympics Kansas and the tremendous growth throughout Kansas going on, please come to the legislative event, and Special Olympics is truly changing the communities you represent. Now, please join me in congratulating members of this team and welcoming them to the Kansas House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like my words spread across the journal.
Without objection, so ordered. The time has arrived to vote on the motion of Representative Woodard to withdraw House Bill 2177 from the committee and place it on general orders. As a reminder, this motion requires 70 votes for adoption. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The noes appear to have it. Division has been called. The roll call has been called. The clerk will open a roll and you may record your vote. Was there 15? Seeing 15 hands, roll call is in order. Has every member who desires to vote voted? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Seeing none, 43 voting in favor and 61 against, the motion fails. The clerk will record the vote. Speaker recognizes Majority Leader Croft for a motion to accede.
The Senate did not concur on House amendments to Senate Bill 142 and requested a conference. I move the House accede to the request of the Senate and that a conference committee be appointed.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The motion passes. As conferees on the part of the House, the Speaker appoints the Representatives Francis, Neely, and Ballard.
Stop.
Speaker recognizes Majority Leader Croft for a motion to accede.
The Senate did not concur on House amendments to House substitute for Senate Bill 143 and requested a conference. I move the House accede to the request of the Senate and that a conference committee be appointed.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. As conferees on the part of the House, the Speaker appoints Representatives Tarwater, Bourgeon, and Probst. Speaker recognizes Majority Leader Croft for a motion to accede.
The Senate did not concur on House amendments to House substitute for Senate Bill 291 and requested a conference. I move the House accede to the request of the Senate and that a conference committee be appointed.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. As conferees on part of the House, the Speaker appoints Representatives Wassinger, Blake Carpenter, and Stogsdill. Speaker recognizes Majority Leader Croft for a motion to accede.
The Senate did not concur on House amendments to Senate Bill 292 and requested a conference. I move the House accede to the request of the Senate and that a conference committee be appointed.
Representatives Ellis, Blake Carpenter, and Weigel.
A conference. I move the House accede to the request of the Senate and that a conference. The Senate and that a conference committee be appointed.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Estes and Stogsdill. Speaker recognizes Majority Leader Croft for a motion to accede.
The Senate did not concur on House amendments to Senate Bill 458 and requested a conference. I move the House accede to the request of the Senate and that a conference committee be appointed.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. As conferees on the part of the House, the Speaker appoints Representatives Humphreys, Lewis, and Heiberger. Speaker recognizes Majority Leader Croft for a motion to accede.
The Senate did not concur on House amendments to Senate Bill 462 and requested a conference. I move the House accede to the request of the Senate and that a conference committee be appointed.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. As conferees on the part of the House, the Speaker appoints Representatives Francis, Neely, and Ballard. Speaker recognizes Majority Leader Croft for a motion to accede.
The Senate did not concur on House amendments to Senate Bill 467 and requested a conference. I move the House accede to the request of the Senate that a conference committee be appointed.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. As conferees on part of the House, the Speaker appoints Representatives Tarwater, Bourgeon, and Probst. Speaker recognizes Majority Leader Croft for a motion to accede.
The Senate did not concur on House amendments to Senate Bill 473 and requested a conference. I move the
changes that we need to discuss. So, plus we have some additional ones that they didn't take action on that we think might work in concert with that. So with that, I move the House non-concur on House Bill 2607.
Is there discussion? Seeing none, Representative Rogers, you may close.
I close.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. The Speaker appoints Representative Rogers, Mosier, and Carlin as conferees on the part of the House. Speaker recognizes Representative Rogers for a motion to non-concur on House Bill 2047.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The House Bill, the Senate sub for House Bill 2047 is one that has to do with Farm and Animal Field Crop Protection Act. So they made some changes that we want to discuss. Also, there were some bills that the House very enthusiastically passed we think should be a part of this bill as well. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I move the House non-concur with the Senate substitute for House Bill 2047.
Is there discussion? Seeing none, Representative Rogers, you may close.
I move my motion.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. The Speaker appoints Representative Rogers, Mosier, and Carlin as conferees on the part of the House. Speaker recognizes Representative Waymaster for a motion to non-concur on House Bill 2551.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House non-concur to Senate amendments to House Bill 2551 and that a conference committee be appointed. If you recall, this was the claims against the state bill and the Senate made some changes to it, and we would like to discuss that in conference. I'll stand for any questions.
Is there discussion? Seeing none, Representative Waymaster, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I close.
Heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. Speaker appoints Representative Waymaster, Hoffman, and Helgerson as conferees on the part of the House. Speaker recognizes Representative Will Carpenter for a motion to non-concur on House Bill 2124.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that we non-concur with Senate Bill, or Senate substitute for House Bill 2124, and that a conference committee be appointed.
And what is that one about?
It's, sorry about that, yeah. It's the microbrewery bill, the one we've all been waiting for. We've been in on negotiations with that, but we want to just take a look at it.
I'm sure that one does need to be non-concurrent. Is there discussion? Seeing none, Representative Carpenter, you may close.
I close.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. The Speaker appoints Representative Will Carpenter, Kessler, and Hoy as conferees on the part of the House. Speaker recognizes Representative Will Carpenter for a motion to non-concur on House Bill 2358.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. I would make a motion we non-concur on House Bill 2358 58, which concerns death certifiers, people that can certify and sign death certificates. The Senate made some changes to that. We want to take a look at that and see why they did that.
Is there discussion? Seeing none, Representative Carpenter, you may close.
I close.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. The Speaker appoints Representatives Will Carpenter, Kessler, and Hoy as conferees on the part of the House. Speaker recognizes Representative Sutton for a motion to non-concur on House Bill 2715.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 2715 had dealt with some fee changes. There were some modifications made in the Senate. I'd like to take a look at those and see why. I think is the biggest question, why there were changes. So, Mr. Speaker, I move that the House non-concur in Senate amendments to HB 2715 and that a conference committee be appointed.
Is there discussion? Seeing none, Representative Sutton, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do close.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. The Speaker appoints Representatives Sutton, Penn, and Neighbor as conferees on the part of the House. Speaker recognizes Representative Sutton for a motion to non-concur on House Bill 2787.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 2787 dealt with the Insurance Guarantee Association. It was kind of a balancing act. I want to make sure that the changes made in the Senate actually work. So I move that the House non-concur in Senate amendments to HB 2787 and that a conference committee be appointed.
Is there discussion? Seeing none, Representative Sutton, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I close.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. The Speaker appoints Representatives Sutton, Penn, and Neighbor as conferees on the part of the House. Speaker recognizes Representative Owens for a motion to non-concur on House Bill 2583.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is Baines Law, the killing of a police animal. Senate made some changes we would like to conference on. So, Mr. Speaker, I move that the House non-concur Senate amendments to House Bill 2583 and that a conference committee be appointed.
Is there discussion? Seeing none, Representative Owens, you may close.
I close.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion passes. Speaker appoints Representative Owens, Eric Smith, and Carmichael as conferees on the part of the House. Speaker recognizes Representative Landwehr for a motion to non-concur on House Bill 2547.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House non-concur in Senate amendments to House Bill 2547 and that a conference committee be appointed.
And what was that one? I know, but what was, people don't know what 2547 is.
Authorizing schools to maintain certain emergency medication kits and to administer such medication kits in emergency situations.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Representative Landwehr, you may close. You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion passes. Speaker appoints Representative Landwehr, Epley, and Susan Ruiz as conferees on the part of the House. Speaker recognizes Representative Landwehr for a motion to non-concur on House Bill 2784.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House non-concur on Senate amendments to House Bill 2784 and that a conference committee be appointed, transferring authority for certification of continuing care retirement communities from the Kansas Insurance Department to the Department of Aging.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Representative Landwehr, you may close.
Close.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. Speaker appoints Representatives Landwehr, Epley, and Susan Ruiz as conferees on the part of the House. Speaker recognizes Representative Humphreys for a motion to non-concur on House Bill 2144.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate sub for House Bill 2144 is about organized retail crime. We passed this out over a year ago. There were significant amendments on the floor and in committee of the Senate. So therefore, Mr. Speaker, I move the House non-concur in Senate amendments to House Bill 2144 and that a conference committee be appointed.
Is there discussion? Seeing none, Representative Humphreys, you may close.
Close.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. Speaker appoints Representatives Humphreys, Lewis, and Heiberger as conferees on the part of the House. Oh, it's all, excuse me, been changed. Speaker appoints Representatives Humphreys, Lewis, and Osmond as conferees on the part of the House. Speaker recognizes Representative Hoheisel for a motion to non-concur on House Bill 2711.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. HB 2711 was our working after retirement bill. I wanted to get that out of the way here before the Speaker called me out on it. The Senate did not concur on the amendment, so Mr. Speaker, I move that the House non-concur on Senate amendments to 2711 and that a conference committee be appointed.
Is there discussion? Seeing none, Representative Hoheisel, you may close.
Close.
You heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. Speaker appoints Representative Hoheisel, Clifford, and Shue as conferees on part of the House. Speaker recognizes Representative Tarwater for a motion to non-concur on House Bill 2570.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 2570 was the unemployment bill. Evidently, what we did was illegal, so we got to go to conference. Mr. Speaker, I move that the House non-concur in Senate amendments to HB 2570 and that a conference committee be appointed. Thank you.
Is there any discussion on its illegality? Seeing none, Representative Tarwater, you may close. Yeah, up there.
I close.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. The Speaker appoints Representative Tarwater, Bourgeon, and Probst as conferees on the part of the House. Speaker recognizes Representative Delperdang for a motion to non-concur on House Bill 2527.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 2527 was a highly negotiated bill concerning economic development with Evergy, and it was negotiated between CURB, KCC, and a whole slew of others. Senate made some changes and amendments to it. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I move that the House non-concur in Senate amendments to House Bill 2527 and that a conference committee be reappointed.
Is there discussion? Seeing none, Representative Delperdang, you may close.
I close.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. Speaker appoints Representative Delperdang, Turner, and Ohabisam as conferees on the part of the House. Speaker recognizes Representative Delperdang for a motion to non-concur on House Bill 2588.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That was the net metering bill for rooftop solar. Again, highly negotiated. Senate put some amendments in there. Therefore, I move that the House non-concur in Senate amendments to 2588 and a conference committee be appointed.
Is there discussion? Seeing none, Representative Delperdang, you may close.
I close.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. Speaker appoints Representative Delperdang, Turner, and Wahbusam as conferees on the part of the House. Messages from the Senate. The clerk will read.
Announcing passage of Senate Bills 367, 386, 426, 457, 488, 532, 524, 544, 552, and 553. Senate Bill 367 by the Committee on Federal and State Affairs, an act concerning elections relating to the Transparency and Revenues Underwriting Elections Act, prohibiting the use of funds provided by the United States government for the conduct of elections or election-related activities unless approved by the legislature. Senate Bill 426 by Committee on Transportation, an act concerning traffic regulations relating to unlawful passing of stationary authorized emergency vehicle, increasing penalties for certain violations, creating a crime for injuring or causing death of certain authorized emergency vehicle operators, and providing a penalty therefor. Senate Bill 386 by the Committee on Education, an act concerning education relating to the Kansas School Equity and Enhancement Act, requiring school district enrollment to be determined using this current school year or preceding school year enrollment. Senate Bill 457 by the Committee on Utilities, an act concerning public utilities relating to eminent domain, prohibiting public utilities from exercising eminent domain for the siting or placement of solar facilities. Senate Bill 488 by the Committee on Public Health and Welfare, an act concerning the Attorney General relating to the Office of the Inspector General and the powers, duties, and responsibilities thereof, expanding the power of the Inspector General to investigate and audit all state cash, food, and health assistance programs. Senate Bill 524 by the Committee on Ways and Means, an act concerning water, specifying when irrigation district board of director elections may be conducted by mail ballot, authorizing the board of directors to set the term for such elected members, defining dam for both agriculture and non-agriculture use, clarifying structures that are water obstructions, providing a civil penalty for violations. Senate Bill number 532 by the Committee on Assessment and Taxation, an act concerning education relating to literacy, establishing the Kansas Blueprint for Literacy, creating a literacy advisory committee, directing the State Board of Regents to appoint a director of literacy education and develop a comprehensive assessment system, requiring the State Board of Regents and the State Board of Education to collaborate on a literacy, micro-credential, and professional development, authorizing the State Board of Regents to recommend diagnostic and formative literacy assessments, authorizing university presidents and deans of education oversight over post-secondary literacy courses, requiring a plan to establish centers of excellence in reading. Senate Bill 544 by the Committee on Assessment and Taxation, an act concerning post-secondary education, relating to scholarship programs, establishing the Kansas Education Opportunity Scholarship Program to replace the Kansas Ethnic Minority Scholarship Program. Senate Bill 552 by the Committee on Ways and Means, an act concerning the State Board of Regents, enacting the Kansas Campus Restoration Act, relating to deferred maintenance and demolition of facilities at post-secondary educational institutions, authorizing the board to adopt rules and regulations, establishing the Kansas Campus Restoration Fund in the State Treasury, authorizing certain transfers from the State General Fund to the Kansas Campus Restoration Fund, requiring annual reports to be submitted to certain committees of the legislature. Senate Bill 553 by the Committee on Federal and State Affairs, an act concerning insurance relating to health insurance, permitting a plan sponsor to authorize electronic delivery of plan documents and identification cards for certain insured individuals covered by a health benefit plan.
Are there announcements? Speaker recognizes Representative Blake Carpenter for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just really briefly wanted to say, in Kansas, we are immensely proud of our partnership with Taiwan and its people, fostering mutual growth and understanding through initiatives like the Taiwan Agricultural Youth Exchange Program. Today, we have the honor of recognizing 6 K-State students who participated in this program, showcasing their valuable connections and insights they've gained. Joined with them today in our gallery is the Director General and members of the Taipei Economic Cultural Office. And just wanted to say thank you for coming back out to Kansas, and please join me in recognizing them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker recognizes Representative Stogsdill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Democrats, we will have agenda at 1:30 this afternoon, 1:30, 152 South. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker recognizes Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Financial Institutions and Pensions Conference Committee, we will be conferencing with our Senate colleagues, 1:30 at 118 North, conferencing on all bills in conference. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker recognizes Representative Francis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We will have a transportation conference committee in room 281 North at 1 o'clock on House Bill 2481 and all bills in conference.
Speaker recognizes Representative Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Education Conference Committee, it says 12 to 2. We're actually going to meet at 11 in room 159 because we just can't stand the excitement of waiting any longer to do what we got to do. So House and Senate Ed Conference Committee, 11 o'clock, room 159. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker recognizes Representative Wagner.
The Conference Committee on Senate Bill 14 with House elections and Senate Fit and State will meet immediately after we recess here in 144 South.
Speaker recognizes Representative Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Appropriations Subcommittee to study contract nursing in the state is set to meet the next 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, noon o'clock in 582 North, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
Are there any further announcements? Seeing none, the Speaker recognizes the Majority Leader for a motion to recess.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Republicans will calendar at 1:30 or 13:30 in the old Supreme Court. Mr. Speaker, I move the House stand in recess until 2 p.m. or 1400.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. We will stand in recess.
House Bills 2587, 2745, 2557, 2525, 2561, and Senate Substitute for 2247 have been signed. Approved March 29th, 2024. Laura Kelly, Governor.
Messages from the Senate. The clerk will read.
The Senate accedes to the request of the House for a conference on House Bill 2663 and has appointed Senators Longbine, Fagg, and Holzer as conferees on part of the Senate. The Senate accedes to the request of the House for a conference on 2560 and has appointed Senators Longbine, Fagg, and Pittman as conferees on part of the Senate. The Senate accedes to the request of the House for a conference on 2577 and has appointed Senators Longbine, Fagg, and Pittman as conferees on part of the Senate. Senate accedes to the request for the House for a conference on House Bill 2501 and has appointed Senators Peterson, Cluse, and Corson as conferees on part of the Senate. Senate accedes to the request of the House for a conference on House Bill 2392 and has appointed Senators Warren, Wilburn, and Corson as conferees on part of the Senate. Senate accedes to the request of the House for a conference on House Bill 2760 and has appointed Senators Billinger, Clays, and Petty as conferees on part of the Senate. The Senate non-concurs in House amendments to Senate House Substitute for Senate Bill 172, requests a conference, and has appointed Senators Thompson, Cluse, and Faust-Gudeau as conferees on part of the Senate. Senate non-concurs in House amendments amendments to House substitute for Senate Bill 271, and has requested a conference and has appointed Senators Thompson, Cluse, and Fauscudo as conferees on part of the Senate. Senate non-concurs in House amendments to House substitute for Senate Bill 322, requests a conference and has appointed Senators Warren, Wilburn, and Corson as conferees on part of the Senate. Senate non-concurs in House amendments to House substitute for Senate Bill 349, requests a conference and has appointed Senators Warren, Wilburn, and Corson as conferees on part of the Senate. Senate non-concurs in House amendments to House sub for Senate Bill 96, requests a conference and has appointed Senators Erickson, Dietrich, and Reddy as conferees on part of the Senate. Senate non-concurs in House amendments to Senate Bill 455, requests a conference and has appointed Senators Fagg, Peterson, and Francisco as conferees on part of the Senate. The Senate non-concurs in House amendments to House substitute for Senate Bill 387, requests a conference and has appointed Senators Baumgardner, Erickson, and Sykes as conferees on part of the Senate.
Speaker recognizes the Majority Leader Croft for a motion to accede.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Senate did not concur on House amendments to House substitute for House substitute Senate Bill 96 and requested a conference. I move the House accede to the request of the Senate and that a conference committee be appointed.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. As conferees on the part of the House, the Speaker appoints Representatives Tarwater, Blue, and Probst. Speaker recognizes Majority Leader Croft for a motion to accede.
The Senate did not concur on House amendments to House substitute for Senate Bill 172 and requested a conference. I move the House accede to the request of the Senate and that a conference committee be appointed.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Motion passes. As conferees on part of the House, the Speaker appoints Representative Tarwater, Bourgeon, and Probst. Speaker recognizes Majority Leader Croft for a motion to accede.
The Senate did not concur on House amendments to House substitute for Senate Bill 232 and requested a conference. I move the House accede to the request of the Senate and that a conference committee be appointed.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. The motion passes. As conferees on part of the House, the Speaker appoints Representative Humphreys, Lewis, and Osmond. Speaker recognizes Majority Leader Croft for a motion to accede.
The Senate did not concur on House amendments to House substitute for Senate Bill 271 and requested a conference. I move the House accede to the request of the Senate and that a conference committee be appointed.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. As conferees on the part of the House, the Speaker appoints Representatives Tarwater, Bourgeon, and Probst. Speaker recognizes Majority Leader Croft for a motion to accede.
The Senate did not concur on House amendments to House substitute for Senate Bill 349 and requested a conference. I move the House accede to the request of the Senate that a conference committee be appointed.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. As conferees on part of the House, the Speaker appoints Representatives Humphreys, Lewis, and Osmond. Speaker recognizes Majority Leader Croft for a motion to accede.
The Senate did not concur on House amendments to House substitute for Senate Bill 387 and requested a conference. I move the House accede to the request of the Senate and that a conference committee be appointed.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. As conferees on the part of the House, Speaker appoints Representatives Christie, Williams, Getz, and Wynn. Speaker recognizes Majority Leader Croft for a motion to accede.
The Senate did not concur on House amendments to Senate Bill 455 and requested a conference. I move the House accede to the request of the Senate and that a conference committee be appointed.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. As conferees on the part of the House, the Speaker appoints Representatives Delperdang, Turner, and Ohabisam. Speaker recognizes Representative Proctor for a motion to non-concur on House Bill 2614.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 2614 is a bill proposed by the Secretary of State pertaining to regulations. The Senate made some changes to this, and we'd just like to get into a conference and discuss those changes. So, Mr. Speaker, I move that the House non-concur in Senate amendments to House Bill 2614 and that a conference committee be appointed.
Is there discussion? Seeing none, Representative Proctor, you can close.
I close.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. Speaker appoints Representative Proctor, Wagner, and Woodard as conferees on the part of the House. Speaker recognizes Representative Proctor for a motion to non-concur on House Bill 2618.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So House Bill 2618 is a bill that was proposed by the Attorney General to correct some issues with a statute we passed making it illegal to impersonate an election officer. The Senate made some changes to this one that I'd like to discuss with the Senate, Fed, and State leadership. So, Mr. Speaker, I move that the House non-concur in Senate amendments to House Bill 2618 and that a conference committee be appointed.
Is there discussion? Seeing none, Representative Proctor, you may close.
I close my motion, Mr. Speaker.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. Speaker appoints Representative Proctor, Wagner, and Woodard as conferees on the part of the House. Speaker recognizes Representative Delperdang for a motion to concur on House Bill 2690.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The House Bill 2690 was the bill that established the 911 board. It also abolished the coordinating council, and it transferred the powers, duties, and functions of the 911 coordinating council to the 911 board. Over in the Senate side, there were just several basic changes. There was a lot of name changes, for example, such as removing county names and replacing it with governing body of the PSAP. I'll hit on a couple of the sections because it was a really long bill. Section 8, there was a date change on the reports, moving it from the 1st of the month to the 15th of the month. Section 12, there was more date changes and similar naming that, like I'd mentioned before. Section 14, that stipulated all monies received shall be deposited into the state treasurer to the credit of the 911 State Maintenance Fund. Section 18 stipulated monies received can only be used for the purpose of authorized pursuant to Kansas 911 Act. Section 23 made minor changes to PSAP funding percentages based on the county populations. Section 24 went into any funds not allocated to specific PSAPs must be transferred to the 911 Operations Fund, and the list just kind of goes on. So nothing really changed the bill content or the purpose, if you will. The 2690 passed the House on February 22nd, 117-3, and it passed the Senate on March 27th, 39-1. With that, Mr. Speaker, I move the House concur in Senate amendments to House Bill 2690, and I stand for questions.
Is there discussion? Speaker recognizes Representative Hohabisam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess I concur with what my chair said. So this is a good bill. I urge you to support it. Thank you.
Any further discussions? Seeing none, Representative Delperdang, you may close.
Thank you, body, for working with us on this, and I close.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2690. The clerk will open the roll, and you may record your vote. We got a few on the way in, so we'll just hold the roll open and we'll wait. You, Representative Sawyer would like to vote aye, I think. There, you can vote now. We have an announcement. Minority Leader Vic Miller has an announcement while we're waiting on others to get in.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to announce the passing of one of our former members. Some of you, I know some of you served with him, Representative George Wingert of Ottawa. George, in addition to many things, he also was a member of the Board of Regents for a while. If you want to learn more about him, they actually did an oral history on him in 2022. You can pull it up easily, but please keep him in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Minority Leader. We are on final action. You'll have to remain in your seats. Have all members had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Seeing none, 114 having voted in favor and 5 against passage of House Bill 2690, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Speaker recognizes Representative Tarwater for a motion to concur on House Bill 2483.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 2483 was the legislative post-audit bill, and the Senate made one change. They changed the timeline for the Commerce Committee to look at new incentive plans from 2 to 4 years, and that's the only change they made. It passed the House 120-0 and the Senate 39-1. I make a motion to concur in Senate amendments to House Bill 2483.
Is there discussion? Seeing none, Representative, you may close.
I close.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2483. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? Clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Representative Hoheisel. Any further changes? Seeing none, 119 voting in favor and 0 against the passage of House Bill 2483, the same having received a constitutional majority. The bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Speaker recognizes Representative Schmoy on a motion to concur on House Bill 2436.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. HB 2436 is the abortion coercion bill. What this does is it criminalizes coercion to an abortion. So if a woman has expressed her desire to continue the pregnancy and someone threatens her, whether it is to harm her physically, whether it's to harm her financially, or whether it is to hold documentation in the case of someone who is being trafficked, then that would now be punishable as a crime. The crime, when committed by the father who is over 18 and the mother is under 18, has a little bit more of a cost penalty to it. Other than that, it is no more than a year in prison. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I move that the House concur the Senate amendments to HB 2436.
Is there discussion? Speaker recognizes Representative Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am disappointed that we didn't get this bill into conference because there is a lot of agreement on the underlying subject matter of this bill. But I do highly recommend that you pull up Senate Substitute for House Bill 2436 because as a House, we have not seen this bill on the floor yet. And I did spend some time preparing some changes to this should it go to conference, because I do think that there are some technical issues with the bill. And this is very serious when we're talking about it currently is. We do have some for domestic battery and animal cruelty non-grid felonies. This does create another non-grid felony. So if you look at, for example, line 14, it just creates a person felony, and it's pretty unusual that we wouldn't assign a severity level, though it is something that we have done in statute before. I think we should have had more discussion on that. Also, the term putative father is not defined in the criminal code. So when we did work this in committee, and so when I asked about what that definition would mean, putative, like, is it whose perception is that under? Do I have to think I'm the father, or does someone else think I'm the father? So there is some, I have some concern there. On page 2, I think this is probably the biggest issue of why I'm going to be voting no on this. I had drafted something for line 15. It's D, any other adverse financial consequence. That is a definition under financial harm, and it came up in committee. Would divorce will fall under any other adverse financial consequence? And I did a little bit more work on this, and I do believe that divorce would fall under this category. And I do think that an individual, if you don't agree on a pregnancy outcome for abortion, I do think that should be able to be cause for divorce. I don't think that we should create a crime that would charge somebody if they just say, hey, if you don't get an abortion, we're going to get divorced. I think that does go too far with this. The other thing at the very end of the bill, starting on page 12, it does create a special sentencing rule, which we have only done for one other crime before, and that's for any crime committed in whole or part because someone is a police officer. So it's unusual that we would have this special sentencing rule. What it does is there's a whole list, you'll see the grid in the bill, and then there's a whole list of other crimes. So if you commit that crime along with abortion coercion, this special sentencing rule then applies, and a jury would have to find beyond reasonable doubt that you committed that in conjunction with abortion coercion. And then those sentences in the special sentencing rule, it does have a hard 25 years on page 13 for imprisonment, which is these are very serious sentences, and these are serious crimes we're talking about. But in Fed and State, when we worked this, we did put in reproductive coercion to make this more broadly apply. But we did have, I just feel like we didn't work through this enough to work out some of the other technical issues, and that's partially my mistake because I thought this would go to conference, but I don't think this is ready for prime time. I don't think this is ready to be put on the books, but there is bipartisan support to keep this bill moving and work on it. But I also think it's unusual that a bill with this severity level of crimes and punishment went through Fed and State instead of corrections or judiciary. And I just don't think we did our due diligence on this. So I will be opposing this. Thank you.
Speaker recognizes Representative Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the carrier of the bill please stand for a question?
Yes.
Could you give me the legal definition of coercion?
Directly outlined in the bill is threatening to harm or physically restrain an individual or the creation or execution of any scheme, plan, or pattern intended to cause an individual to believe that failure to perform an act would result in financial harm to or physical restraint of an individual. Abusing or threatening abuse of the legal system, including threats of arrest or deportation, without regard to whether the individual being threatened is subject to arrest or deportation under the laws of this state or the United States. Knowingly destroying, concealing, removing, confiscating, or possessing any actual purported passport or other immigration document or any other actual or purported government identification document from an individual without regard to whether the documents are fraudulently obtained. Facilitating or controlling an individual's access to controlled substance other than for legitimate medical purposes. Financial harm means any of the following: A, a loan, promissory note, or other credit instruments that provides for interest at the rate that is prohibited by state or federal law. Any employment contract or agreement for the payment of wages that violates the Wage Payment Act, or extortion, or any other adverse financial consequence.
Thank you. So, and I apologize, but this is the first that I've ever heard of this, this particular bill. So, same question in slightly different fashion than the representative that was here before me. So, if there are two people that are involved in a relationship and they're not married, but they do reside in the same house, they share of the same resources, and a pregnancy occurs, would an individual be held responsible, and would it be considered coercion if that individual or one of the individuals in this relationship said that if you decide to have a child, then I'm out of here, knowing that they have shared responsibilities? I'm just thinking that, this is something that comes up, rather frequently with young couples. I'm not thinking about those couples who have been married. I'm thinking of those young couples who, quite honestly, oftentimes are scared, right? At the, at the sound of, hey, there's going to be another life that is going to be a part of this, and I'm not ready for it. I had dreams, I had aspirations, and this wasn't a part of it. And if this is the direction that you want to go, then you're welcome to go that direction on your own, but I don't want to. And so then I decide that I'm going to vacate this relationship. Could a then vindictive mother, could she then enact this and say that this was a definition of coercion because, quite possibly they had shared rent together, they lived in the same apartment or home? Would that then constitute coercion?
I think that in that particular circumstance that you're talking about, if the mom feels that she has been coerced and takes this to a prosecutor, did, just as a body, hear and pass the bill that has to do with making sure that the woman, the pregnant woman, is taken care of.
As a definition of coercion, and I just think this is a bridge too far. I'm really disappointed that we didn't have more conversation with this particular bill on the House floor, but you know, because of that, I would not be in support of this bill. I just see how this could turn into a real sticky situation for a lot of young people, and certainly they have enough on their plate, especially with the addition of a child entering both of their lives. So I would urge you to vote against this concurrence. Thank you.
Speaker recognizes Representative Sawyer Clayton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just wanted to provide just a little bit of backstory about the House committee discussion. As our ranking minority member mentioned, there was an amendment that was added on in committee that would have expanded the scope of the bill, that would have included reproductive coercion. And that would be, you know, there are abusive relationships out there where people work to keep their partners pregnant because it makes it more difficult for them to leave. Now, that amendment, of course, was stripped out by the lesser chamber. They've really been pleasing me lately. But I did want to get up here just simply to thank the committee members that supported that amendment, because it was not just members of my caucus. Obviously, I'm grateful to them. But, you know, my gratitude is extended to the members of the majority party that serve on Federal and State Affairs Committee that did support that amendment. It means a great deal to me personally to know that a lot of you do understand that abuse can be perpetuated in a number of ways, not just in the way that was listed in the base bill. And so just wanted to say thank you to all of that. And, you know, yeah, when I see people doing the right thing, I like to thank them publicly. So grateful to you for that, even though, as usual, the lesser chamber took something good and kind of ruined it a little bit. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker recognizes Representative Estes.
I wholeheartedly support this bill, but I have to tell you how horribly sad it makes me that we need this bill. And those of you who represent Sedgwick County likely remember the middle school aged girl who was taken across county lines to Butler County and murdered for refusing to have an abortion, because that would have been proof of the baby's father in statutory rape. We need to protect our young people, and I think this bill accomplishes that. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Representative Schmoy, you may close.
Thank you, Speaker. I close.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2436. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Representative Owens votes aye. Representative Wassinger votes aye. Representative Schmoy votes aye. Representative Bourgeon votes aye. Representative Penn votes aye. You belong in your seats. This is final action. Representative Sutton votes aye. Any further changes of vote? Seeing none, 82 having voted in favor, 37 against the passage of House Bill 2436. The same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. And colleagues, we have a former Representative Jack Timish on the south wall. Speaker recognizes Representative Humphreys for a motion to concur on House Bill 2675.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 2675 has to do with non-parent visitation. We passed it 120-0 in February in the House. The Senate made a few changes that seem fine. They amended the bill to add the phrase "or person acting as a parent" in provisions that reference parents, and it is to comply with the sole bill that we passed. And then they also changed clarifying the persons having, we said custody, they changed it to legal custody, residency, or parenting time with a child are entitled to be given notice.
Seeing none, this constitutes final action on House Bill 2675. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Representative Howerton votes aye. Representative Seiwert votes aye. Any further changes of vote? Seeing none, 118 having voted in favor, 0 against the passage of House Bill 2675, the same having received the constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. House Bill 2828 appears on the consent calendar for the third day. Is there any objection? Seeing none, it will be advanced to final action. Final action on bills and concurrent resolutions, the clerk will read.
House Bill 2828 by the Committee on Taxation, an act concerning sales and compensating use tax relating to city and countywide retailers' sales tax, providing countywide retailers' sales tax authority for Marshall County for the purpose of financing the costs of constructing or remodeling and finishing a jail facility.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2828. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? Clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Seeing none, 116 voting in favor and 2 against the passage of House Bill 2828, the same having received the constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Reports of standing committee, the clerk will read.
The Joint Committee on State Tribal Relations introduces House Resolution 6045, a resolution approving the amendment to the gaming compact between the Iowa Tribe of Kansas and Nebraska and the state of Kansas, and recommends adoption of the resolution.
Are there announcements? Speaker recognizes Representative Christy Williams.
You're fine. Thanks, Mr. Speaker. We have our first conference committee meeting. It'll be in 159 South for House Substitute for Senate Bill 387.
Speaker recognizes Representative Francis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Transportation Conference Committee will continue at 5 o'clock and 582 North on all bills in conference.
Speaker recognizes Representative Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Committee on Elections and Senate Fed and State will conference on all bills in conference immediately following recess in room 144 South.
Speaker recognizes Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Insurance Committee will be having a conference committee in 118 North as soon as we recess. 118 North as soon as we recess. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker recognizes Representative Owens.
Just a reminder for the members on the Joint Committee, the Russell J. Jennings Joint Committee on Corrections and Juvenile Justice, we have a planning meeting tomorrow at noon. And that is in 218 North. Lunch will be provided. So if you're a member of that interim committee, please plan to attend so we can get organized. Thank you.
Speaker recognizes Representative Will Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Financial institution and pensions, our work is done for the day, but tomorrow morning we'll be conferencing at 9 a.m. in room 281 North on all bills in conference. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker recognizes Representative Wassinger.
Legislative Modernization will meet for conference committee at 4 o'clock this afternoon in room 144 South.
Representative Tarwater, are you wanting to speak? It would be good for you to put it over on the bill side instead of the amend side, but with that, we'll let you speak. Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The A stands for announcement. Attention, commerce fans. Our first conference committee battle will be tomorrow afternoon, and it will be the House Commerce Committee versus the Senate Fed and State Committee on Senate Bill 271. This is the drone